Thank you for staying with us. The Lagos State government has reiterated its stand on the total ban of the usage and distribution of styrofoam and other single-use plastics in the state, saying there is no going back on its decision. The decision became necessary due to the destructive impact of polystyrene on the environment. Most drainage channels in the state are daily clogged up by styrofoam through its indiscriminate dumping. But the government has given producers and distributors the next 3 weeks, after which full enforcement will begin.
Waste management poses a major challenge for megacities like Lagos. The ban imposed by the Lagos State government on styrofoam, commonly called takeaways, is to curb environmental pollution and promote a cleaner environment. However, there are varied perceptions about this development.
If we don't try something, we won't even know if it will work or not. But now that we have tried it, let's see how it can work and help our environment.
I think it would cause a little bit of hardship to those that are making money through it, because for me, it's a better way of packaging foods bought from public places.
I don't support it because what is their provide? What have you provided?
Single-use plastics like shopping bags and PET bottles cause major environmental issues. Many of them end up on the streets and subsequently block drainage paths. They take many years to break down, generating long-term waste problems. Worried by this development, the Lagos State government took action relying on several enabling laws, including the National Environmental Regulation of 2009, which prohibits single-use plastic in the country but hadn't been enforced until now.
All the states has done under the themes agenda, as you know, the H in themes is health and environment, is to take a very hard look at the existing legislation and decide, well, as a government, you're responsible to enforce the law. So it's not sudden. You can't say if somebody has stolen an object, an item, and you arrest them, that you need to give them advance notice that you're going to arrest them. You've breaking the law, and even not being aware of that law is not enough of an excuse.
While this ban on styrofoam and single-use plastics take effect, agencies like LOMA are gearing up to ramp up advocacy efforts. They are also prepared to clamp down on companies and distribution outlets to prevent further distribution.
We are going to call the stakeholders that is the market women, to let them know about the bans, because most of this thing is being used in the market because it's very cheap, so they prefer to use it to sell food. After the advocacy, after the enlightenment, if you use it, it becomes illegal for you for using. We can arrest you and prosecute you.
You and I eat fish, and all the fishes comes from where? From the ocean. The volume of microplastic that has been found infiltrating into fish is huge. We are saying that research has shown that every human of us have dangerous plastic chemicals in our system, and they are entering the food chain. So when you look at the public health impact of plastics, then you will not even want to use plastics.
As the ban on single-use plastics take effect, Lagos anticipates a shift towards eco-friendly practices, even as there are expectations for innovative solutions, increased public awareness, and a ripple effect that could inspire positive change. Esther Mopariola, TVC News, Lagos.
All right, joining us is Environmentalist, Chairman, Lekki Urban Forest and Animal Sheltering Initiative, Desmond Majakudumi. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Pleasure to be with you.
Right. Would like for you to speak up a bit, please, so we can hear you clearly. But first, let's get your reaction to this development from the Lagos State government banning the use of single styrofoam packs and all of it. There's been divergent reaction to it. There are those who are saying this is not the way to go, and that banning it outright might just have its implications?
It is long overdue, and it is very, very encouraging that the Lagos State government, particularly the Ministry of Environment, have taken this very bold step to do this. In fact, the reality is that these single-use plastics, especially the styrofoam, should never even have been introduced into the food system, into that system at all. It shouldn't have been introduced. Globally, people are realizing that this thing has to be stopped, and stopped very, very urgently. The amount of problems, health problems, the amount of environment problems that this is causing is totally, totally unacceptable. There's no way you can justify it. How do you justify using a product, especially the styrofoam, the polystyrene? How can you justify using a product that ends up killing people, especially children, simply because it is extremely cheap? So it is profitable to use the styrofoam in your packaging. Do you know that if you put a hot product in a styrofoam cup, like tea or cocoa or something, or you put hot food in a styrofoam package, it now encourages this styrofoam to release toxic chemical. And after some time, this toxic chemical can cause terrible health conditions. So it's a very, very welcome development, but I'm not surprised, because we're seeing some very pragmatic, positive moves coming from the Ministry of Environment. The new commissioner is not taking any nonsense at all. He is determined, so it appears, to do his best to protect our environment. After all, the environment is our life support system.
So, Desmond, now, what do we do? Because we just played a report, and many people have complained about the fact that the other alternatives are more expensive. What can we do actually in the wake of this announcement?
Yes, it's a difficult one, and I do believe that the Lagos State government will find a way to cushion the effect, especially on the lower income tiers. Because, you know, when you have a situation whereby some people have accumulated a lot, maybe stored it up, maybe some of the dealers, the middlemen and women who are doing the distribution, you know, so they might have quite a lot in store. And there has to be, hopefully, a way to give them some kind of compensation. Likewise, even the manufacturers, because in fairness to them, they're doing business, and it's a global business. As far as they're concerned, we're doing what many people all over the world are doing, even though I'm sure a lot of them would have become aware that their product is not a good product. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for the health. So I think the main thing that can be done now is what seems to have been done. There was a meeting, I believe, just yesterday, with the commissioner and some of the manufacturers and so on. And he said it's going to be a little bit phased out, there'll be a little bit of a gap, but awareness. And that's why I'm so encouraged that this particular station, who has always been at the vanguard of promoting conservation, promoting looking after the environment, or as I call it, caring for the miracle of creation, because that's what it is, a wonderful miracle, and we're caring for it. This station has always promoted it, and I believe that more media organizations could help with a deep grassroots campaign, you know, to let the people know, go to the markets, let the market women know that, look, madam, this thing that you're using is not good, is very unhealthy. Children can die as a result of using it. And I'm sure they will be convinced. So there needs to be a very pragmatic way of bringing this about. So it shouldn't be looking as if, oh, government is coming to fight us and all this thing. No. There should be a very, very good pragmatic campaign to let them understand that it's been done for the people's good, for the people's health, and then hopefully find a way to compensate those who are stuck, even though they say, yeah, you know, the law has been in place a long time, but a law that hasn't been publicized, that hasn't been enforced, it's just ridiculous, you know, calling it a law. So let's forget about that, and let's really enlighten the people and find some way. There has to be some way of compensating them, and then fast tracking the alternatives. Because even just ordinary thick plastic is not necessarily the best alternative. There are biodegradable substances that can be used. After all, your grandfather and my grandfather and grandmother, they were using calabash and moi moi leaf to wrap the food and to drink and to so on to eat from. And this is biodegradable. There are actually a lot of products that are coming up now.
We go back to calabash and leaves to eat.
Right, we'll come back to that conversation of either going back to calabash, using leaves or banana leaves, like we even see in some countries, Asian countries right now, but that will be after the break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Before we went on the break, we were looking at the matter of the ban of the use of single plastics, for instance, styrofoam, in Lagos State. And we have been speaking with Environmentalist, Chairman, Lekki Urban Forest and Animal Shelter Initiative, Desmond Majekodumi, on this matter. And Desmond, you mentioned that we should be looking at alternatives. You mentioned the use of calabash, the use of banana leaves, and all the leaves used for wrapping moi moi, for instance. And I've seen that in other countries, especially Asian countries, that they use that to serve most persons, even in big hotels, so to speak. But then, aren't we putting the cart before the horse as it is, because we haven't done as much with regards to advocacy, creating awareness, putting forward the alternatives that can be used as against the styrofoam packs in this context?
Yes and no. Yes and no. It needs to be done, especially the styrofoam. And the alternatives are there. They're not the most desirable. That is, you know, you can still use solid, you know, slightly thicker plastic. And this thicker plastic, especially with the very, very effective campaigns that are going on now from the Ministry of Environment, there's a lot of recycling, waste to wealth going on. So those plastic containers, if they're used responsibly, and that's the key, again, awareness, it has to be used responsibly. They can be recycled, and so they are not so much of a nuisance to the environment. Meanwhile, the process of developing the biodegradables, because, you know, globally, the whole world now realizes that we're causing too much damage against this wonderful gift of nature, this incredible miracle of creation on this, our wonderful planet, our only home. And in so many ways, we're beginning to cause irreparable damage. It's not just the climate change, which is already reached crisis stage. It's not just the wiping out of so many species, which is also reaching crisis stage. It's the massive pollution of plastic that goes into the waterways particularly, and even into the land, and starts to break down into tiny, tiny pieces, whether they even found in an embryo, a 8-month-old baby from his mother's womb, microplastic inside. So this is now becoming a major emergency. And you know, the responsible people, the responsible leaders, and there's a difference, you know. In some parts of the world, there's some leadership that is extremely irresponsible. But in other parts, there are leaders who understand the implications of making a decision that can affect millions of people. Whoa, it has to come back to you who made that decision. And if it affects them positively, if it does good things for their lives, definitely you're going to get blessed. And if it does bad things for their lives, you will get the process of what happens when you get cursed from doing bad things into people's lives. So yeah, and this is scripture. This is not me talking. This is all our scripture tells us very clearly. So where you have responsible leadership, and they are responsible leaders in some parts of the world, and luckily it appears we have in Nigeria too, then they are now really trying to get the alternatives to cut away from the plastic. So the immediate alternative, especially the styrofoam, which is the really dangerous one, is already there. You can use the plastics and they'll be recycled. And then there has to be a very, very strong move to start to develop the biodegradables. After all, our grandparents were using it now. You know, so that's also very, 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 very key to fast track that process. And then we now look at the plastics and identify certain ones that are not easy to recycle. And then we start to implement restrictions on their use and phase out and eventually total ban on some of those so-called single-use plastics. Meanwhile, the research is going on to find the alternatives. Other countries have already got it, so it's not it is certainly not beyond us at all. Our institutions can easily, in fact, they're already coming up with it. They're already coming up with it, but it needs to be done rapidly. However, the styrofoam, that one has to be almost immediate, and then the compensation will come there. Who knows? Eventually, we might be going back to what our grandparents were doing, just using the calabash. See, we should learn from history as well.
Okay, so the styrofoam ban is the government has given 3 weeks, but is 3 weeks enough to mop up these things? Because they're all over the markets. For instance, go to Lagos Island Market, it's all there in packs. How does the Lagos State government intend to mop up all of these and clear this styrofoam from the market in 3 weeks?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question. 3 weeks is tight. Well, I think funds will just, I would definitely recommend, you know, finding some money from somewhere to be able to actually go and mop it up by compensating these people, especially in the markets. You know, there has to be an empathetic way of doing this, because these are the people who are feeling the pains of the structural changes that are going on now anyway. A lot of the markets, they're still having to supply their own electricity. No. This is, you know, this is so, I mean, it was painful enough in the past that to run your business, you know, quite often during the day, maybe 2, 3, sometimes 4 times during the day, sometimes the whole day, you will have to be supplying fuel to power your generator. In the past, when the fuel was, you know, quite expensive. Now, the skyrocketing of the price of fuel has impacted very, very heavily on those people through no fault of theirs. Is it their fault that they don't have steady electricity? And, you know, is it their fault that this has been going on for over 30-something years in this nation, this great nation, Nigeria, not being able to supply steady electricity? Is so embarrassing that we have all the resources to do that. So this needs to be taken into consideration. These people have been very, very negatively impacted in the markets, especially. So, you know, I would really strongly advocate finding some way of compensating those who have not been able to get rid of their products. Okay, you said, oh, it was illegal, you should have known. Come on, where was the awareness? They're so busy on the market, they're so busy getting the products, going to the
this was why I asked earlier if we are not putting the cart before the horse. Yeah. When we haven't really engaged stakeholders who are into the business to really know how they can handle these matters. Because if we are talking about compensating them, from which it has to do with a budget issue. How do we go about that? How about those who are doing businesses and rely on the styrofoam packs for their business? At the end of the day, there are a myriad of issues that has to be looked into. As much as we agree that this is something that has to be done, but aren't we just dealing with it from being too harsh with our implementation? Because there are those who said the matter is actually a waste disposal issue as against the use itself.
Yes and no. Yes and no. Yeah, you know, it is a waste disposal issue, but with poison substance, shouldn't be used for packaging food anyway.
Absolutely.
So it should never have been done. It's a very, very good point that you brought up. And it's not just, Nigeria, it's not just Lagos that's facing this issue. Because again, here we are. This is one of the main drivers of this very, very awful onslaught. You remember I said earlier that, humanity generally is causing irreparable damage to nature, to the environment, to our life support system. And this is totally unacceptable. And that's why there are major moves from certain areas, especially Secretary General of the United Nations. What's he saying? He's saying mankind is waging war against nature, and this is suicidal because nature fights back. And of course, she's fighting back through the fundamental laws of action begetting reaction, okay? Every action begets a reaction. And if the action of putting a packaging material that is responsible for killing children, because they're the most vulnerable, it's carcinogenic. And not to mention blocking the drains, and then water comes in, and yes, it's a disposable thing. It's also, it needs to be well disposed of, but people need to be assured and need to be persuaded to do that. So it's a big problem, okay. Not just facing Nigeria, but this is a good move. And they said, okay, they're giving them 3 weeks, and then during that 3 weeks, there has to be intensive interventions, and there has to be a compensation for the people who have accumulated the product, especially the low tiers, and even the manufacturers. Although the manufacturers themselves, they've known. You see, it's part of this situation that has to bring about a paradigm shift in humanity, not just Nigerians. We must have a renewal of our minds, because you go into manufacturing a product that especially, if you're intelligent enough and you're big enough to set up a manufacturing industry, the implications, the health implications of that product, that it is bad for the environment, it's bad for human health, but because it is so profitable. And this is where the real change of attitude must come. Because we as humans, we as people, we as Nigerians, we have been putting profit ahead of people, ahead of planet. And it can no longer be that way, because nature, the planet herself, is saying, no, you can't be destroying my systems. You can't be breaking down my life support systems for you just because you want to make profit. And as a result of what you're doing, people are dying, children are dying of cancer, of different types of diseases, of all kinds of problems because you want to maximize your profit. No. That has to change. And we have to be realistic. We have to be non-hypocritical about following our scriptures. And our scriptures say, love your neighbor. Our scriptures say, peace be unto you. And it's not a very loving thing to do to your neighbor, to do a business that is profitable and that is bad for their health, that is killing their children. No, we have to change our attitudes. And sometimes change can be a little bit awkward, it can be a little bit painful, but this is a change for the good, for the better. And I'm convinced that the Lagos State government, especially what I'm seeing in the Ministry of Environment, the commissioner is really going for it. He's doing the right thing, but he has to do it pragmatically, and he has to get advice from people who can help him to arrange to make it a bit more of a soft landing for those people who have got caught up in this trap of putting profits ahead of people.
Okay, so do you expect other states to replicate such ban?
Oh, for sure. When they see something that is something excellent going on, this is the state of, and there's a reason why the state has that nomenclature, why it's an excellent place, because we have the highest caliber of intellectuals, highest caliber of intelligent people and hardworking people, and also tremendous diversity. So, the diversity of Lagos is one of our strong factors, because, it is the spice of life. So you're able to draw nuggets of information and, little good things from the different ethnic groups that you have here, the different wonderful diversity we have here. Oh, yes. When it comes to environment, other states will do it. In fact, federal must do it. They must do it, and I'm sure they will do it. After all, they replicated the Loma. Loma was started responsible waste management that used good high tech and all this kind of thing. It was started in Lagos, and other states have been replicating. In fact, not even other states, other countries in Africa now have been copying Loma. So yes, I definitely see other states following the path of Lagos, center of excellence, and if they do it well enough, then Nigeria will become a center of excellence.
So how do we then address this matter of proper waste disposal, seeing that is an issue that Lagos State is really fighting to grapple with?
Yes, I think we're pretty much on the right track, but we need to definitely escalate it. We need to move far faster. I believe the way Lagos has been going recently in the last few years with this themes system in the government, bringing the ministries together, ministries who have common grounds, bringing them together to find solutions. I think this is an excellent way to go, because what we've observed in the past is some of these ministries are in competition with each other. And that's not the way to serve the people effectively. Even within some ministries, there's competition amongst the various aspects of those ministries. This is not the way. This is not the way. And the job description needs to filter in a bit more. That the government is a civil service, and to be a really good leader, definitely you have to be serving your people selflessly. And again, they should appreciate that Scripture is very, very clear. That God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man sows, he shall reap. Right. The Ministry of Environment is sowing, really good things into the lives of the people here. Definitely, all the people behind that ministry will reap good blessings. But the alternate is also very, 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 very true. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, but I think we're on the right track. I think the Ministry of the Environment probably needs a lot more support as well.
Okay. We'll have to leave the conversation here now. So much has been said. Environmentalist, Chairman, Lekki Urban Forest and Animal Shelter Initiative, Desmond Majakodumi. Thank you so much for your time.